So let us start with today's topic. I am presenting the topic to you right now. In last session, we have learned about different types of sliding contact bearing. In that session, I have told uh, the types of lubrication also. So basically, the lubricant used is an fluid. So to understand the right selection of sliding contact bearing, it is necessary to learn some basic fundamentals of fluid mechanics again here. We are not going to learn the everything in detail here, but we are going to review the important aspects of fluid mechanics, which are useful from the perspective of bearing. So, what are the important perspective we are going to learn? We are going to learn in detail lubricant viscosity term and their measurement, then categorizing this viscous fluid based on the viscosity index, how the viscosity index is created. So that we are going to learn here. And one derivation on viscous flow through the rectangular flaw. This we already done in fluid mechanics, but this will be specifically for lubricant as a fluid. So we are going to learn today this topic under sliding contact bearing. So let's move to the next slide. So where we will be learning about lubricant viscosity. Let me check the sound, whether you are receiving the sound. Hello. Okay.
Audible.
So yeah, you are. I am audible to all. So I will start again the presentation. Okay. So let's go to the next slide. Uh, Now I am not adding much to your value because you are learn this under fluid mechanics. So viscosity, what is mean by viscosity? I have defined here. Viscosity is defined as the internal frictional resistance offered by a fluid to change its shape or relative motion of the part. Okay. So to understand this concept, you can take two plates. One is a stationary, another is a moving, and this plate can be placed on a fluid here. So I am shown here exaggerated view of a fluid molecule here. So when this plate is moving with a velocity u under the action of this tangential force capital P at a distance h from the fixed surface, fixed plate. So the fluid under there will deform. So they will deform by relative motion there, because so this molecule will have velocity u1. This molecule will have velocity equal to, being attached to the surface, will have equal to velocity u. So so based on this, so these molecules will offer resistance to this flow to this plate. So that resistance is called as viscosity. So to define this resistance and evaluate this resistance value, Newton has proposed a theory called Newton's law of viscosity. In that, he states that the shear stress is directly proportional to the rate of shear at any point in the fluid. So this is a statement in word. Normally, most of the rules regulations are converted into mathematical formula by appropriate sign convention. So for that, we are considering here force is P, velocity of this plate is U. So consider the plate is moving with velocity U under the action of force capital P. So if I apply this statement to this molecule here, so I will have a relation U by H, because this deformation is a, I am assuming a linear deformation. So the position of this molecule after time t, so u upon h, this ratio, velocity upon h ratio, the rate of deformation has to be same everywhere. Rate of deformation has to be same everywhere. So if I take a point 1 here, so then u1 by h1, and if I take another point here, say, then u2 by h2 will be constant, wherein the tangential force per unit area, that is P by A, is called as shear stress, and the ratio U by H is called the rate of shear. So under relative motion here, rate of shear will remain constant. So if rate of shear remains constant, so as per the statement, we can write down P by A is directly proportional to U by H. U by H is rate of shear and P by A is your shear stress. Okay. So this shear stress value is not important for this moment at this moment here. So what is important is the amount of force required to move this plate. So that tangential force P can be evaluated by removing this proportionality sign and introducing a constant. So this constant is called as dynamic viscosity mu. So P is equal to mu A into U by H. This part we will learn in fluid mechanics. Up to this we will learn in fluid mechanics. So now this we are assuming that the velocity distribution here is linear. That we have assumed that U by H is equal to U1 by H1, that is equal to U2 by H2. So this is nothing but your shear stress rate, but it is nothing but your velocity distribution at that point. Now many times you find the velocity distribution is not uniform or it is not a linear. It is a non-linear function. If the velocity distribution is non-linear with respect to H, then you cannot write U by H. You have to write this U by H in terms of differential form. So then this equation can be written as P is equal to mu A into du by dh. Mu A into du by dh, where du by dh is the shear stress at that level, H level. If you take a velocity distribution graph and if you take the slope of that graph, that slope is nothing but du by dh. That is nothing but the shear strain rate at that location. So if we reorganize this term to get the value of viscosity, say dynamic viscosity mu is equal to PH upon AU. So A will go on this side. So it will become P by A. Then if you take linear this thing, so H will be going here. So P into H and U will be coming down. So mu is equal to PH upon AU, or dynamic viscosity at that location will be P into height at that location upon the velocity at that location. So this equation is valid only when there is a linear variation of shear stress rate, where mu is the viscosity of the fluid and the unit of the viscosity is Newton second per millimeter square or megapascal second. Now many times this unit is very large, so we cannot use this unit for measurement. So what is done? They have used the commonly used viscosity unit is centipoise. So 1 Newton second per millimeter square is the SI unit. That is equal to 1 megapascal second, and that is equal to commonly used centipoise unit, that is Cp. So 1 megapascal second or 1 Newton second per millimeter square is equal to 10 raised to 9 centipoise. Okay. So from this, if you want to determine mu value in SI unit, you should have the value of viscosity in centipoise, which is written as a small letter z here. So mu is equal to z upon 10 raised to 9, where z is the viscosity in centipoise. The z value is nothing but dynamic viscosity in centipoise divided by 10 raised to 9. We will get a dynamic viscosity in either in Newton second per millimeter square or megapascal second. Because this is very important, because we are going to deal with lubricant in this chapter. Selection of lubricant is also part of your selection of sliding contact bearing, and specifying the viscosity value of that lubricant is mandatory. So if you don't specify that viscosity in right unit, then your design may not be appropriate or selection may not be appropriate. If you mention only value, that is not sufficient. Mentioning that appropriate unit is mandatory. So you should know what are the units used for the viscosity measurement. This we have already learned in fluid mechanics, but now we are focusing on lubricant. So whatever the viscous lubricant we are using, so what are the values of viscosity in centipoise or viscosity in terms of 1 megapascal second? This value is very large, so it is always expressed in terms of centipoise. Even it is not expressed in poise, it is expressed as centipoise, and then centipoise can be converted into megapascal second in the design calculation. Design and selection calculation, you require this new value. So you have to convert into the SI unit. So for that, you can divide by 10 raised to 9 here. Okay, so you have understood the viscosity concept and viscosity typically for lubricant. Now let's go to the viscosity measurement, how this viscosity is measured. Okay, so there are different methods to measure the viscosity. So already I have talked, there are two types of viscosity. One is dynamic viscosity and another is kinematic viscosity. Direct measurement of dynamic viscosity is not possible by any method. Please remember, dynamic viscosity cannot be measured directly. So what you have to do? Then you have to measure kinematic viscosity and convert into dynamic viscosity. So let's understand how this kinematic or dynamic viscosities are measured here. So there are popular methods of determining viscosity. So in that popular method is they measure the time. So measure the time required for given volume of oil to pass through the capillary tube of standard dimension. So what will be done? You will be given a sample of oil. You have to take that sample of oil and pass through a restricted passage. You have to pass through a restricted passage, restricted capillary tube. So there will be resistance offered by that capillary tube surface. And you have to measure how much time required to empty that given quantity of liquid. So your standard quantity of liquid will be taken, standard size of capillary will be used. And with the help of that standard capillary tube, standard time, you can calculate measurement. So there are different methodologies used in the different continents. So if you take America, that is US continent, they will use the Seybold universal viscometer. If you go to the UK continent or European countries, they use Redwood viscometer, and Indian continent angular viscometer is used. So every viscometer has the methodology slightly different, but the outcome should be similar. The outcome should be similar. So here I am elaborating on universally, mostly accepted viscometer is Seybold universal viscometer. So I am expressing how it is conducted. In Seybold universal viscometer, standard size of 60 millimeter of lubricating oil is passed to the capillary tube of standard dimension, and the time required to pass this fluid is measured in seconds. Okay, so this is the standard test carried out. So unit of viscosity here in this Seybold universal viscometer is called as Seybold universal second. So whatever the time measured here is called as Seybold universal second, and they are related to kinematic viscosity by following relation. So with this universal second, we are not measuring dynamic viscosity directly. We can calculate kinematic viscosity first. So you can use this time. So whatever the time required, there say T. So that time will be used to determine the kinematic viscosity by following relation. This is the relation for Seybold viscometer. This relation cannot be used for other viscometer. Other viscometer will have another relation here. So because their procedure is slightly different. So ZK stands for the kinematic viscosity here is equal to 0.22 T minus 180 upon T, where T is the time required here in second, and this time unit is called as Seybold universal second. So this T is in Seybold universal second because you are using Seybold universal viscometer. So you are passing this 60 millimeter of oil through the restricted passage through the capillary tube, and you are measuring this time, and this time required is at 10 seconds. So you will take 0.22 into 10 minus 180 upon T. That much value of viscosity, kinematic viscosity will get here. Now, since this is a restricted passage, the time required is very large. It is not 10 seconds. Otherwise, I have told you will put that value 10 seconds and do this calculation. It will come negative. Okay. So the time required is very, very large for viscous fluid. So based on that, you will get the kinematic viscosity. So T here is Seybold universal second, and ZK here is the kinematic viscosity in centistoke. This value you will get in centistoke. Then you can write a relation between kinematic viscosity and dynamic viscosity. This value is in centistoke, and this will be dynamic viscosity in centipoise, and rho is the density. So density in gram per centimeter cube here. This value will be used here in gram per centimeter cube. So from this relation, you can get the viscosity in centipoise. So you will get the value of viscosity in centipoise, and later, in as per the previous slide, you can convert this value in terms of your Newton second per millimeter square or megapascal per megapascal second. In that form, you can convert and you can use. Sir, you will ask why you have explained the viscosity measurement here, because you have to select the right lubricant for right application. So many times you need to change the lubricant in some of the bearings if the load conditions are changed. So when you are selecting that lubricant, you should have right lubricant with right viscosity, with right viscosity index. Now let's go to the what is meant by viscosity index here. So I am going to show the viscosity index here. Let's go to the next slide. So let's come to the viscosity index. Let's define the viscosity index first. So what happens when you take any fluid under consideration, their viscosity value, there are two types, kinematic viscosity as well as dynamic viscosity. But this viscosity value changes with respect to pressure as well as temperature. But in case of liquids, the change with respect to the pressure is very, very negligible. But in case of the temperature change, the viscosity value changes drastically. So the response of that fluid to the change temperature, viscosity response, whether the viscosity remains same or changes to some extent or changes to large extent. So that response is called as viscosity index. So it is defined here, the rate of change of viscosity with respect to temperature indicated by a number called as viscosity index. So the rate of change of viscosity with respect to temperature, if you quantify that change and if you express in number, so that number is called as viscosity index. So this is a general definition. To be specific definition is here. The viscosity index is defined as an arbitrary number used to characterize the variation of kinematic viscosity of lubricant oil with temperature. Now I had already told there are two types of viscosity. Then viscosity index should be related to what? So viscosity index is related to kinematic viscosity. Okay, so viscosity index is defined as an arbitrary number. It is an arbitrary number used to characterize the variation of kinematic viscosity of lubricating oil with the temperature. Now, how will you determine the viscosity index? How will you determine the viscosity index? So, to determine the viscosity index, there are the trial and error methods are followed, and from that, the viscosity index of given sample can be found out. So, let's understand how this viscosity index is calculated. So, in order to find the viscosity index of an oil, you require another two oils. You require three oils, the oil for which you are going to determine the viscosity, and you require two reference oils. So, two groups of reference oils are required. So, what are these two groups? One group consists of oil having viscosity index 100. So, we will take one oil with the index value of 100, which will be called as a reference viscosity reference oil, and these oils will have very small change of viscosity with respect to temperature change. When we can assign Vi equal to 100, when the oils have very small change of viscosity with respect to temperature change. So such oils are called as oils with viscosity index 100. Another group of oil will be taken. The other group of consists of oils having viscosity index 0. These oils have very large change. That is very important. These oils will have very large change of viscosity with temperature change. Okay. So if I take these three oils, two reference oils having one reference oil having viscosity index 100, one reference oil having viscosity index 0, and the other oil viscosity index we are going to determine, three oils will be taken, and we have to plot certain diagram. With this oils, we have to plot the diagram. So I am explaining the procedure to determine the viscosity index for given sample. So let's take the sample, measure the viscosity of the given sample of oil at two temperatures, one at 100 degree Fahrenheit and another at 200 degree Fahrenheit. Please take your given oil for which viscosity index you are measuring. So please measure the kinematic viscosity value at temperature 100 degree and 200 degree at that point. Then plot this viscosity as shown in figure. So please take this is say 100 degree ordinate here. This is a vertical ordinate of 200 degrees. Say this x-axis represents temperature here. Then you have taken given sample. After you have taken sample, you know the value of that viscosity. You have measured that using Seybolt or angular viscometer. You measure the viscosity value, kinematic viscosity value at 200 degree, 12 degrees Fahrenheit. The value was at A point, and at 100 degree Fahrenheit, the value is Y. That is it at point B. Then join this A and B point. So this A and B point will characterize viscosity change with respect to temperature for given sample. It will characterize the viscosity change for given sample between 100 degrees Fahrenheit to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So the first step is to take the given sample, measure the viscosity at 100 and 212 degree Fahrenheit, and plot on temperature change graph. So you have X value and Y value, so plotted A point and B point, and join this A point and B point. Next, select the first reference group. That is, first reference group consists of VI 100. So first group with VI 100 value, that is viscosity index value 100, whose viscosity value at 200 degrees Fahrenheit. But select the oil such that the viscosity value of that oil at 212 degrees Fahrenheit, which is given in the table for that table, is same as your given sample. So at 212 degree, I take another oil having same viscosity, and viscosity index of that oil is 100. Okay, so I have plotted 1 point for that. Then plot the viscosity value of such oil at 100 degree Fahrenheit and 200 degree Fahrenheit. So 200 degree Fahrenheit is almost similar, so the point will be very close. You may not get exact oil there, so it may happen your point X may be here, X1 somewhere here. No problem, it can be somewhere slightly away from point A, no problem. Ideally, you should take at A point that X value, and 100 degree value here, 100 degree value for VI equal to 100. For 100 degree value here is H, and that value is plotted here with point D. So then you can join point A and D. So this line represents viscosity change for oil with viscosity index 100. Oil with viscosity index 100. Similarly, you have to select another reference oil with index value of 0, viscosity index value of 0, whose viscosity value again at 212 degree Fahrenheit should be same as a sample oil. So again, you should have same point here, starting point. Then you measure the viscosity of that lubricant. Measure the viscosity of that lubricant at 100 degrees Celsius and plot on this same chart. Suppose the viscosity value at 100 degrees Celsius for that VI equal to 10, 0 value is say L. So I plot L here, so I get point C here. Then I can join C and A point. So this AC line represents viscosity change for oil with viscosity index 0. So this line AD line represents viscosity change for VI value of 100. AC line represents VI value for 0. And now this AB line is for given sample. Then what is the viscosity index of this AB line or viscosity index of that given sample? So to determine that value, you have to use this formula. According to ASTM standard, the viscosity index is given by VI is equal to, for given sample here, L minus Y. This is the maximum value L. Given value at 100 degree, it is Y upon L minus H. L is the viscosity index for 100. H is the viscosity value at 100 degrees Fahrenheit for viscosity index 0. So L minus H. So since we are having triangles here, so we are using the similarity concept in triangle, and based on this VI can be calculated, provided your starting point A remains same for all three lines. In reality, getting that starting point A is difficult, but it is assumed to some extent, even though your another point, say A1 is here and A2 is here, you can assume A1, A2, A3 points are together, and from that you can calculate VI index by this formula. So you can get this value. So if L is say 100 here, and H here is say 50. So L minus H 50. So that will be become 50. And this Y value is say 70 here. So L minus 70, that is 100 minus 70 will come as 30. So 30 divided by 50. So this ratio will come as a fraction as how much? It will come as 0.6. So multiply by 100. So it is multiplied by 100 here because it is in fraction. It has to be expressed into 0 to 100. So you have to multiply by 100. So once you multiply by 100, so this may come as 60. This may 0.6 multiplied by 100 will come as 60. Means the viscosity index of given sample is 60. So what is the correlation between viscosity index value? If I take an oil with viscosity index of 60 and compare with a viscosity index value of 30 oil, then viscosity index having 60 has less rate of change of viscosity with the temperature compared to oil. You can see from this diagram, this AD line corresponds to viscosity index 100. If you take the slope of this AD line, which is lesser than AB line, and it is further lesser than AC line. So slope of AC line is higher because viscosity index value is 0 here. And the viscosity index value for AD line is 100 because the slope of AD line is the lowest. The slope of AD line is lowest. So what the slope indicates? The slope indicates the change of viscosity. Viscosity in Seebold universal second here, kinematic viscosity here, with respect to temperature. So this change is minimum with viscosity index 100 and maximum with viscosity index 0, and your given sample line will lie between this range AD and AC. So your given sample will have line called AB. So from this you can determine viscosity index. Now most of you people are using bike, and in that bike, do you know what type of oil is used for lubrication, engine lubrication? You can somebody can unmute and answer this question. Do you know the viscosity index value of that lubricant? Hello? Hello? I think I have lost. Can you give a small answer? What is the viscosity index of lubricating oil used in the engine? Bike engine or diesel engine, petrol engine, car mein? Do you know? Or you can type also. I have lost the connection, so I rejoin again with the phone. Uh, the viscosity index value you required for lubricant oil depends upon the type of engine and their performance. So normally 20T or 30T oil is used. What is this 20T stands for? 20 stands for viscosity index value of 20, or 30 stands for viscosity index value of that oil 30. So mostly the oils with viscosity index in the range from 20 to 30 are used in the lubrication of your engine lubrication, gear lubrication, and any moving parts in the automobile parts. So automobiles will use the viscosity index between even they can come down to 15 also. Some of the gearboxes use viscosity index value of 15 also, but generally it is in the range of 20 to 30. Nobody use viscosity index of 60 or 70. Please remember, only in special cases, viscosity index of 60 or 70 is used. Okay. If you have understood, let's go to the next slide. Okay. So I have plotted here. I have to understand the concept of viscosity change. Absolute viscosity in centipoise can be plotted on y-axis here. Temperatures can be plotted here. It is ranging from 10 degrees Celsius to 100 degrees Celsius. Now you can refer here. This is an line representing SAE 10 oil. SAE, that is Society of Automotive Engineers. They grade this lubricant based on the category. So 10 is the viscosity index. The number here indicates the viscosity index. So SAE 70 oil will have highest viscosity at given temperature. Suppose this is 60 degrees, if your gearbox is operating at say 60 degrees Celsius. So if you use SAE 30 oil, then the absolute viscosity of that oil will be shown here on y-axis here. If you are using SAE 10 oil, then absolute viscosity will be here. That is, absolute viscosity will be small here. So if you see this graph here, the slope of this graph and slope of this graph, you can compare here. Slope of SAE 70 graph for same temperature range, and for slope of the SAE 10 graph for same temperature range, the slope of SAE 10 is greater than slope of SAE 70. That indicates that the viscosity of this oil changes less compared to this. So here the change is more, here the change is less. So sometimes you need to refer the graph, because the viscosity given by the supplier of the lubricant may be at only 25 degrees Celsius, and you may be operating at say 90 degrees Celsius, 80 degrees Celsius. So at that value, what is the, you have taken SAE 20 oil. So he specified the viscosity say 150. So here it is correct, 150. But your operating range is 80 degrees Celsius. So SAE 20 oil, so at 80 degrees Celsius, you will have the viscosity value for that fluid is just 12 or 13. So your purpose may not be solved. Purpose may not be solved. Hello? Just 1 minute. Hello? Let's go to the next slide. Now this is very important here. Can you hear me? Please, somebody can unmute and answer this question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. This is very, very important topic in your sliding contact bearing. To understand the flow of liquid, or especially lubricant liquid, through a very, very small restricted passage. So what we are considered here, there are two plates here. This is one plate, another plate is here. And we are considered here control volume of liquid here flowing through them. So we have taken a rectangular volume here, so which is flowing in the downward direction. Let's assume that the flow of the fluid is direction. So we are consider the slot having dimension here. L is the dimension in the flow direction. This is the L length of the control volume here. Then dimensions B and H. B is the this length that is perpendicular to the flow direction. This direction is downward, so this is perpendicular, as well as this H is here, H by 2 here and H by 2 here. So total distance is H. So B and H are the dimensions perpendicular to the flow. Let's remember, L is the dimension always in the direction of flow. B and H are perpendicular dimensions to the direction of the flow. Now consider the control volume for study as shown in figure. Considering both the planes are stationary, we are assuming at this moment this plane as well as this plane being fixed, both the surfaces are fixed. So according to Newton's law, if I write here P is equal to mu A into du by dh here. Now what is the area here? So I take very small control volume here. So the area here is nothing but this area, resistance area is this area into this area. So this area will be on the two sides. So here, one area here and another area here, this area, small area here. So whose have length? Length is equal to L. The length here is L. This length is L. Then width here is B. The width here is B. So L by B. So there are two areas of resistance. So 2 times L into B. So mu into 2 times L into B. Now instead of U, we are representing here, this liquid is flowing with velocity V. So we have distribution of velocity pattern here. We are assuming at this location velocity is V. So dV here, and we are consider this element at a distance x from the center. We are consider this is the center line, and this surface is at a distance x from the center. So dV by dx. So velocity change with respect to h here, that is dV by dx, where area is equal to 2lb and du by ds is equal to dv by dx. Now considering the equilibrium of these forces on this small element here. I am considering equilibrium in vertical direction here. So considering equilibrium of forces in vertical direction here. So what we will have here, on this side here, we are assuming the pressure is PA. On this side here, we are assuming the pressure is PB. So the pressure difference here is delta P, that is PA minus PB. That is, say delta P is equal to PA minus PB. PA will be greater, PB will be small. Since the flow is happening in downward direction, so PA has to be greater. So delta P is PA minus PB. So how much area this delta P is acting? It is acting on this area X, this distance X, into the length here B. That is length B here. So X into B. But there are two such areas, one small area here and one small area here. So it becomes 2 times. So 2xB delta P. This force is acting in downward direction. This force is acting in downward direction, which is balanced by a viscosity force acting on this surface and on this surface exactly in opposite direction. So for that we are using minus sign here. So minus mu, that is equal to viscosity force is by tangential force, that is nothing but your tangential force P, that is equal to here mu into 2lb into dv by dx. So that will be in the opposite direction. So this control volume is in equilibrium under the action of downward vertical force because of pressure difference and upward viscosity force here. So now this, you may ask why this negative sign is used. So negative sign indicates the velocity decreases as x increases. If you go from the center line away here, so this expression can be written in terms of velocity change dv here. So dv is equal to minus delta p upon mu l into x delta x. B will get cancelled, 2 will get cancelled here, and this negative sign indicates the velocity decreases as x increases. At x equal to 0, you will find the velocity is maximum. At x equal to h by 2 here, this is a fixed surface, so fluid here will not flow at all. So the velocity of the fluid here on this surface is equal to 0 here. So we can write down dv is equal to minus here, minus sign because of that. So delta p upon mu l into x dx. Now to get the value of velocity of the liquid or lubricant at any location here, so you can integrate this equation. Integrating the above equation, we have integration of this. So integration of x dx, x integration with respect to dx. So x square by 2 will come here. So that I have missed to write here, x square by 2 comes here. That I have missed to write here x. While taking down the notes, you can write down here x square by 2 minus delta p mu l into x square by 2 will come here plus p. Now the constant of integration, this integration constant can be found out what is the condition at the boundary. So we have one side, left side is minus h by 2, right side is plus h by 2. So the value of constant c can be evaluated from boundary condition at x equal to plus minus h by 2. Velocity of the lubricant is equal to 0 then. Okay. So if you put that value here in this equation, plus h by 2 or minus h by 2, you can get the value of c, and that value of c is equal to delta p upon mu l upon h square by 8. Here I have considered that x square by 2 here. X we are putting as h by 2, so x square will become h square by 4. 4 by 2 will become as 8 here. Then you can put this value in this above equation here, and you will have velocity distribution function here. This is the velocity distribution function. Delta p upon 2 mu l upon into the bracket h square minus 4 minus x square. Now this equation is a parabolic equation. You can see this equation is a parabolic equation. So the profile of velocity profile here will be a parabola. This profile will be a parabola profile with maxima at center. The maximum velocity at center. So the maximum velocity occurs at center x equal to 0. So if you put the value of x equal to 0 in the above equation, Vmax value is equal to delta p h square upon 8 mu l. If you put this value x equal to 0 here, so you get Vmax value. So we have parabolic profile here. So parabolic profile velocity distribution, average velocity you can find out here. What is average velocity? Because in reality we cannot measure the instantaneous velocity. What we use is the average velocity passing through the fluid passing through this rectangular channel. So what is average velocity? So if the profile is say parabolic profile, average velocity is 2/3 of Vmax. ये आपने फ्लूइड मैकेनिक्स में लर्न किया. So average velocity of 2/3 of Vmax. Vmax कितना है? So you can put that value of 2/3. So that value gets as delta p h square upon 12 mu l. So we get average velocity is equal to delta P. Delta P is the pressure difference across this control volume. H is the your width, rectangular slot width, perpendicular width to the flow, and 12 mu. Mu is the dynamic viscosity of that liquid, and L is the dimension in the direction of the flow. This is the length direction. It is not length. It is the dimension of that rectangular slot in the direction of flow. Okay. So from that we get average velocity. So you from this average velocity you can determine the flow rate of the lubricant required here. So the flow rate of the lubricant through the slot Q is equal to V average into area. So delta P H square upon 12 mu. The area here, this size is H and this size of slot is B. So the area here is B into H. So B into H is multiplied here. So volume flow rate required to means the relation for volume flow rate through the channel here, Q is equal to delta P BH cube upon 12 mu. So this relation is very, very important when you are doing the design of hydrostatic bearing. So you require to know what is the Q value for hydrostatic flow to maintain that load. So you need to know the formula Q, and that formula for Q can be determined by this relation here. Whether you have specific formula for that bearing, step bearing, so we'll use special formula. But normally for pad type bearing, we use this formula, and in that we determine what is delta P across that pad. We determine what is the B value for that pad. We determine what is the clearance value between the pad and the supporting element, that is the H. Then we determine how much the length across which the flow is happening. So that length also we determine in that geometry, and from that we can determine how much Q required for that step bearing or pad bearing. So this value can be determined by this relation, very important relation. So this relation we are going to use while solving the problem. Okay, understood? Similar, there is the chances we have another relation called Petrov equation. Okay, so Petrov equation is used for rotating elements. Right now we have learned the concept of fluid passing through the two fixed surfaces. But many times you will have one surface fixed, another surface moving, rotating, moving with respect to relative motion with respect to each other. So I am taking one such surface here. I am considering this bearing surface is fixed here and this shaft is rotating. Assume that this shaft is horizontal. In this diagram I have shown it vertical, but this shaft is actually a horizontal shaft, and on that horizontal shaft this radial load W is coming there, and this needs to be supported. This radial load is need to be supported. So we are considering here, consider the journal bearing. I am considering now that diagram is, that explanation is for hydrostatic bearing, step bearing. Let's consider this is a journal bearing with shaft concentric to the bearing surface and subjected to light radial load of W. Light radial load of W here. In this shaft, we have a radius of journal. This is the radius of the journal, which is in millimeter. Length of the bearing. This is the length of the bearing. We again in millimeter. C is the radial clearance. We are assuming the shaft is at the exactly at the center line. So I am assuming this clearance and this clearance is same, and this C is nothing but your radial clearance. There is a diametral clearance concept also. So we will use as and when required either radial clearance or diametral clearance. So assume that this C is a radial clearance here. And this shaft is rotating at a speed, journal speed of revolutions per second, ns. So this is rotating at RPM or RPS. The RPS value is equal to say ns. So the velocity of this journal of surface. So if I take a point on the surface here, say this is your shaft rotating. I take a point on this surface. What is the velocity of that point? So that velocity I am assuming here as u. So that velocity is nothing but your r omega. So we have r. Now omega is nothing but 2 pi ns. Omega is nothing but 2 pi ns. If n is taken in RPM, then it is 2 pi ns by 60. Since we have selected that n value in terms of revolutions per second, so r omega will come as 2 pi r ns. So the velocity of the point on this surface, the tangential velocity is equal to 2 pi r ns. Now if I apply Newton's law, basic Newton's law, that is P tangential force acting on that surface here, P will be equal to mu into u upon h. Let's put the value of u and h and as well as a here. P is the tangential frictional force here. H is the radial clearance here. What is the H here? This is the radial clearance value equal to C here. Area of the journal surface. This force is acting on the area of the journal surface. That is the lateral surface area of this cylindrical diameter here. That is equal to here 2 pi RL or pi dl. Okay. So you can put all these values in this equation P here. So we have mu, area is equal to 2 pi RL, then U is equal to 2 pi R into Ns upon H is equal to C here. So we have the tangential force, that is the frictional force here, 4 pi square R square L mu Ns upon C. Now this is your frictional force. Then what will be the frictional torque acting on this shaft? So frictional force multiplied by radius, frictional force upon into radius, we will have frictional torque. So MT frictional, that is the frictional torque acting on the surface, that will be opposing that motion. V is equal to P into R. So if I multiply R, so this will become R cube now. The rest of the terms will remain same. That is equal to 4 pi square R cube L mu Ns upon C. Now this is your frictional force. Now this frictional force is by this relation. There is another concept I have taught you, that is bearing pressure. Bearing pressure is small p. It is written as radial load upon projected area of the bearing. So radial load is W, projected area of the bearing, projected area of this bearing. So if I take this area here at the surface, the diameter is D and length is equal to L. So the projected area is equal to D into L. That is equal to 2, D is equal to 2R. So it is equal to 2R into L. So we will have bearing pressure of this bearing is equal to W upon 2RL. So while selecting the hydrodynamic bearing, bearing pressure is very, very important. So this is called as a design parameter. Bearing pressure is a design parameter in hydrodynamic bearing. So which depends upon your radial load. So radial load upon your projected area for the bearing, that is equal to 2RL. So from this we can determine your load W. So W load, radial load, which can be supported for given bearing pressure or standard bearing pressure is equal to 2 P RL. Now there will be frictional force because of this radial load. So the frictional force and frictional torque, that is frictional force, this is your radial load. Frictional force is F into W. W is your normal force. This is a normal force. If you multiply by coefficient of friction, then it becomes frictional force. So F is the coefficient of friction here. So FW is your frictional force. If you multiply by radius, then FWR becomes as a frictional torque. So FWR is a frictional torque. So frictional force and frictional torque are FW and FWR respectively, where F is the coefficient of friction. So we can write down MTF, another relation, that is equal to F into W into R. So we can put the value of W here. W is equal to 2PRL. So we get F into 2PR square L. So we have two relations for MTF. This is one relation and this is another relation. So we can compare these two relations. And we reorganize this relation to determine the coefficient of friction F. If we take all these terms on the left side here, then the coefficient of friction F is equal to 2 pi R square. That 2 will get cancelled. So remaining is 2 pi square. Then R cube and R square are there. So only R will be left. So R by C term will be left. So R by C term is here. Then mu Ns is there. L and L will get cancelled out. P will go on this side. So we will have mu NSP, another relation. So these are characterized in three parts. 2 pi square is a constant because pi is constant. So this 2 pi square is constant. R by C is and R is in millimeter, C is in millimeter, because this is the radius of journal. C is the diametral clearance or radial clearance. C is the radial clearance. Both are in millimeters. So R by C is a dimensionless number. Then mu is in Newton second per millimeter square. This is in revolution per second, and this is Newton per millimeter square. So Newton per millimeter square will get cancelled out. Second here, revolutions per second will also get cancelled out. So mu Ns upon P is another dimensionless parameter. And which is called as bearing number. This is called as bearing number or bearing parameter. Bearing parameter, dimensionless number, bearing parameter. So this is very important parameter while selecting hydrodynamic bearing. R by C value is important and mu NSP value is important. So when we are going for selection process of hydrodynamic bearing, the calculation of coefficient of friction is very important, and calculation of coefficient of friction is done by this relation. And in this relation, R by C value and mu NS by P value is very important, and that decides the coefficient of friction for that bearing. So this equation is called as Petrov's equation. Sometimes this is asked for 5 marks in the your question number 1. Derive the equation for Petrov's equation for hydrodynamic bearing. So this is the relation you have to write, and this will be maybe asked for 5 or 8 marks. You have to draw this diagram. You can draw this diagram in horizontal manner. This is a front view and this is a top view. No problem. You can draw this diagram in horizontal manner or vertical manner. It is understood. This is an hydrodynamic bearing having journal bearing having length L, and this equation will be used. And this equation we are going to use in the selection process of hydrodynamic bearing. So this is regarding the basic fluid mechanics. I am talking about very basic fluid mechanics required for selection of sliding contact bearing, both for hydrostatic bearing as well as for your hydrodynamic bearing. Special fluid mechanics we will learn as and when we will be going for selection of that problem. So I have completed the text delivery for today's session. If you have any query on this today's session, you can write up or you can unmute and ask the question. You can ask the query.